So our next speaker today is Tim Magney with Wilbur-Ellis Company, and he's going to be talking about herbicide control of problem turf weeds today. So with that, I will give you Tim.
Thanks, Jerry. You see my screen is things up or no?
Yep.
Looking good.
Okay, oops, sorry. All right, kind of odd doing this in this kind of environment, but Frank, great job earlier for Frank. A couple of the slides you're going to see are kind of duplicate slides from what he did, just because we got to think about the same type of things, identifying the weed, identifying the timing, making sure we get things right. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I thought I'd start with a quick little safety note here. Let's not be these guys in our workplace. Let's try to be safe and do things right. Not even goes on to what we do out there. Let's be right and safe. So I'm going to talk about quite a few different things. One, we're going to talk about some labeling, things to look at there. We're going to talk about weed identification. We're going to talk about some herbicides. We're going to talk about calibration, just kind of a what to do and going through things. So a lot of get safety out of the way first. One of the most important things that we do is we want to read and follow all label instructions. There's a lot of informative information on labels, and I'm going to go through some of those as we go forward here. So some things to think about for sure. Whoops, did they read and follow label instructions on that one? Not quite sure. Maybe the house was supposed to be upside down or not, but just thought it was kind of an interesting picture to put in there. Also, remember that the label on the jug is the one you're supposed to follow. So if you have a jug in possession and you're out doing some applications, that's the label you follow. If you have one from 2 years ago of the same product, they may not be the same label. So we do have to think about making sure that we have the label on the jug is the one we're following, okay? Whoops, I got something screwed up here. I don't need to see myself on here. I need to see that, okay. So when I think about reading and following label instructions, I look at, Frank brought up dimension, so he had a good label on dimension. Some of the things I want to know is where can I use dimension? So when I look at a label, one of the first things I go is what use sites are on this label? What's the active ingredient? There's many labeled products that may be even the same or have a little bit of variance, but you want to know what the active ingredient is and the amount of active ingredient. For schools and parks and some of those kind of things, signal word is also an important factor in what they do. So you want to think through some of that and know what the signal word is as well. And what PPE is required of me to use while either using this product, mixing this product, applying this product, all kinds of things, because there's different things based on whether you're going to be a mixer, a loader, or just an applicator with that. Here's another one. Desperado, it's a herbicide. So there you see the active ingredients on the label. So you'll know what's in that and you'll be able to do your spray records right based on those kinds of things. We also have our PPE in there. And so if you look, all mixers, loaders, applicators, and other handlers must wear. And it talks about protective eyewear, being goggles, face shields, or safety glasses. Nothing worse than the Department of Ag stopping somebody on a use inspection and seeing their safety glasses hanging on the rear view mirror or sitting on the dash and not being utilized by them as part of their PPE at that time. When it says it, use it. Protective eyewear, long sleeve shirt and pants, socks, underwear, socks and shoes. Also talks about your rubber gloves, talks about cleaning, but it talks about mixers and loaders on there. Very important. Then we want to know, where can we use this? And I get this question a lot based on schools, parks, those kind of things. Can I use it on school grounds? What kind of turf uses does it have? So you find this on the label and you can start looking through there and go, well, it has residential uses, has turf sites on there, cemeteries, industrial spots. But I also see schools, nursing homes, museums, libraries, those kind of facilities on here too. So this label is very broad in where its uses are and what we can do. but it also has some prohibitive sites on there that you want to pay attention to. Do not apply, of course, to bodies of water, streams, that kind of thing. Do not apply to agriculture. So there are some places to do it. Don't apply to golf course greens. Calibration. So we've talked about, you know, we want to be safe. We want to read the labels. We want to know where to go with the label. We don't want to know what to do with all of those. But before I even can go out and identify weeds and start using a herbicide to spray these weeds, I need to calibrate. And no matter what piece of equipment I use, I need to calibrate that piece of equipment and myself with that. Whether it's my big sprayer with 200, 300, 400 gallons in it, or it's my backpack or my hand can, I really want to make sure that I calibrate those well and do a good job with making sure it's right. And the other thing to think about is just because I put it to bed this year calibrated doesn't mean that in the spring it's going to be ready to go because it was good last fall. Recalibrate. I like to do it 2 or 3 times a year, because we don't want to be this guy. We don't want to put the wrong thing in or calibrate it wrongly or do anything that's not right. You saw this from Frank earlier, which is really important when we're thinking about what type of weed are we trying to get control of as a post-emergent in our turf grass. Is it a grassy weed? Is it a broadleaf, or is it a sedge? And those are really important things to know while selecting our proper post-emergent. Frank showed this slide, which I thought he did a really good job of talking about, whether it's an annual weed, a biennial, a perennial, summer, winter, simple or creeping. So we need to know those types of things so that going forward, we know when to apply the herbicide for best results. If we're out there trying to chase a summer annual and we hit it in the fall, we may not do the best job possible. Or also it allows us to decide maybe some pre-emergence that would go along with our post-emergent to get best weed control we want. So timing of applications, if it's an annual, you know, seed to seed in 1 year. Frank brought that up. Summer, you got your crabgrass, your black medic, your spurges. Those crabgrass and spurge, I don't know about everybody, but along every curb line, every driveway, every sidewalk, it seems like around here lately, crabgrass and spurge have shown up every summer along those. Partially because that's the warmest area of our landscape right there in our turf area, but 2, when we put our pre-emergent out, we really got to make sure we hit that edge well. Then we've got some winter annuals, some chickweed and shepherd's purse. We got to get after those maybe in the winter time or late fall. Biennials, of course, that wild carrot he brought up, 2-year life cycle, and then some perennials, they continue to regrow year on year, dandelions, and then the white clover. So we got to start identifying these weeds. If we've got a dandelion out there and we go pull the top off of it, guess what? Because it's a simple perennial, it is going to regrow every year in that same spot. So we've got to decide what to do. Dandelions typically are pretty darn easy to control. White clover, Frank brought white clover up. There's some pre-emergent opportunities there, but post-emergent works really well is going forward. The thing about white clover that I notice most of the time is that a bunch of white clover is typically in a under fertilized lawn, because white clover has the ability to fix nitrogen from the air and kind of keep itself good and healthy. Whereas if it's a well fertilized lawn, white clover doesn't usually take over in some big patches. So when I see white clover in a yard, I'm fully confident that they haven't fertilized a lot in that season. Broadleaf plantain, we're starting to see a lot of small leaf and broadleaf plantain out there. Really been hard to control. We look at these big leaves and we think, wow, that's an easy little post-emergent control. Well, those are some really tough, waxy leaves that kind of shed off our herbicides and don't die very well. So they are extremely hard to control. Black medic. So we talked about this one as well. It comes from a single root and then it vines out across the yard. Pretty easy to identify. But one of the things that I run into is people confuse that with oxalis, yellow wood sorrel. So they think they have either black medic or oxalis, and those are really important to identify what I have there. So whether it is the black medic or oxalis. And then, of course, I talked about the spotted spurge next to crabgrass along the edges. Spotted spurges everywhere. It's a milky plant. It's, again, really tough to control because it's in that hot zone, and it's just waxy and tough to control. The one that we've had most trouble with is this oxalis in a lot of turf areas because it's a summer annual. So we don't see it for a while. It germinates, and then, boy, in the heat of the summer here, it pops up. Well, it's hot outside. We're having, our herbicides aren't working that well on a lot of the broadleaf weeds. One, it's warm out. We're spraying early in the day. People are watering too much. I mean, there's just a lot of factors that go into not controlling. But Wilbur-Ellis did come up with a new one this year. We're pretty excited about. We're going to talk about it here in a minute, but it seemed to do the job we needed to do on oxalis. One of the keys, anytime you're spraying weeds in turf, is to have a surfactant with it. We've got to help that herbicide out. We've got to put a surfactant in there so we can get some spreading, some penetration, some good weed control in there. One rule of thumb, though, typically, if you're using a fertilizer in weed control, I'd rather you keep the surfactant out of that. If you're using just weed control, then that's when we want the surfactant in there. One of my favorites on turf, because I can use it as a pretty low rate, is Siltac EA. It's great for wetting and penetration with the modified vegetable oil and the organosilicone, which it can help spread that out really well. So really key to make sure we have a surfactant with any herbicide we're using, unless we're putting fertilizer with the herbicide. Trimec is a great one. PBI Gordon makes that. The Encore, so they have a whole list of different products. So we're going to go through a few different things, just so you kind of get a knowledge of some products. The thing about turf herbicides is that there's probably, I'm not even sure how many exactly, but 50 plus choices. So you need to know some certain things about what you're doing out there. Have I applied a 2,4-D product wall to wall on my turf that year twice? Because if you have, you got to switch to something that has non-2,4-D in it. Have I just spot treated? What kind of weeds are out there? Is the product I'm using going to get those weeds? What's it labeled for? So we got a lot of things to think about before just choosing a herbicide. PBI Gordon also makes for Wilbur-Ellis 3 different herbicides. We're going to talk about a couple of them. Desperado being new this year, Phloxapyr, Triclopyr, Sulfentrazone, and MCPA. The beauty of that one is there's no dicamba and no 2,4-D in there, and it's a 4-way. So you get 4 different active ingredients to control tough to control weeds. You don't have to worry about a 2,4-D component and or a dicamba one, because it seems like everything we were using had dicamba in it, and dicamba is overuse can harm trees. The neat thing about Desperado and some of these new ones is that they've got some new formulations. Suspo Emotion, an SC, is a formulation containing both solids and liquids, and we're going to show a couple of pictures about what this means. Because of Desperado being the emulsion, as I talked about, it's creating smaller droplets and gets more product on the weed surface, so on that leaf. So here's a great example. On the top, you've got a leaf surface of a regular herbicide hitting that, and those are some very large droplets. Those could be blown off by the wind. They could roll off of there. They could do all kinds of things. If you get some smaller droplets on there, you get more product to the leaf surface, and you're going to get better control when you do that. It's kind of interesting. The first time I had a customer tell me they sprayed this stuff, he said, it was just amazing. You literally could spray it, and it almost looked like you could see it coating the weed. He had never had that happen to him before, and he sprayed a lot of herbicides, but he said, I never had it where I literally felt like it was a smoother, it covered the weed better, all of these types of things. And I think it's because of the type of product that it is. It has that ability to smooth out and put smaller droplets on that leaf surface. A good example, again, an EC, the old emulsifiable concentrate product, products that we use, and this emulsion in water. Lot smaller droplets. More droplets mean better control, meaning we get more product on the weed's leaf surface, and then we put a little surfactant with that. Now we've got some great spreading and better penetration. What does it look like? Well, Desperado is a very milky white appearance versus the gold of of like a speed zone. When it's mixed in water, it will have a lighter kind of a white little milky appearance to it, but it is, because it's in water, it is that emulsion is white. Another product that I wanted to kind of touch on really quickly is Foundation. Again, another product from PBI Gordon, and PBI Gordon is a great manufacturer of post-emergent herbicides for what we're looking for. So the key thing here is that they use their moisture lock technology, which allows the droplet to stay wetter and reduce burning and crystallization. So it aids in that drying during dry and cool weather. So it doesn't allow it to dry up too quickly. Here's a good example. With the moisture lock in there, you get a 2,4-D amine product out there. It's dried and crystallized, and when it does that, now you don't get any product in the weed. The Foundation with the moisture lock is still wet, still available, still getting pulled in by the weed, getting longer lasting control, doing that whole thing. So much benefit to having that in a moisture lock form. Also, on this particular one, we selected the DEA side of 2,4-D, not the DMA, which means we get some of those deeper rooted perennials. So again, what did I talk about before? Is this a 2,4-D based product? Absolutely. So we have to be careful when using 2,4-D products wall to wall across the property. Is it been once or twice? If it's twice, we've got to rotate out of something without 2,4-D in it. Another 4-way herbicide. And the reason we're starting to like to see more 4-way herbicides or more active ingredients in the single jug is because we get to that resistance management is starting to happen. So we got 2,4-D in this, sulfentrazone, dicamba, and again, triclopyr. Meant for early and late, really good control of some of those hard to control things like violets, that kind of thing. More triclopyr per acre than anything out there in the bottle as far as an AI out there. We're just looking at the one compared to some others, but quite a bit more triclopyr in the jug. The thing I like about, so for instance, Desperado and Foundation is they're labeled for ornamental turf, sod farms, not in Arizona, but everywhere else, non-crop and some vegetation control. So it's not, you know, it's not just for your turf. You could take it and do a roadside with it, or you could do other places with that, everything that's listed on the label. So you have more flexibility out of a single product. So here was an example of a Foundation at 40 ounces, some in-place encapsulated, and a little Renegade for the surfactant. And we went along a roadside and got kochia and got it well. So some really good pictures of that based on, we could take it in the turf and do really well with some turf weeds, but we can also take it out there on that roadside, just as a thought. Another really good manufacturer of herbicides as far as post-emergent on turf is New Farm. So I asked them to send me some slides of some of their things. What I wanted to really talk about here is the difference between esters, spring and fall, and the amines, summer and spring. In Spokane County, we have ester restrictions that don't allow us to spray after May 1, and we cannot spray an ester again until October 15th. In some areas, there are no restrictions. So you need to know in your area what your restrictions are based on your county's rules or your area's rules as far as when and how you can use ester products versus amine products. Esters work really good in those cool temperatures in the Spokane County. If we can get out early and get some esters down, we love using Cool Power. We love using some of those because they really react well in cool temperatures and do a fantastic job. So they do increase the plant penetration and uptake. They work really good in cooler temperatures, whether it's a spot treat or not. But we like esters early and late. But again, we're really limited in our neck of the woods. I know over in Seattle, they can use them, I believe, year round. So, but we're limited. Now, amines, you know, those we don't use as early because we want them to be a little bit better temperature wise, 55 to 90 on the outdoor temperature. So, or soil temperatures. That way we know the weeds are actively growing, and that's the time when those do well. But they're really a lot safer. They're non-volatile, they mix easy in water, and they absorb really well. Here's a few of the active ingredients, the evolution of herbicides kind of. They've got some different ones on the list. You can see they've done a really good job of putting on, you know, a bunch of three-ways here, and they're all kind of uniquely different in the way that they go. We use some horsepower in the summertime because, again, if you see that as a non-2,4-D based product, MCPA, triclopyr, dicamba, like Cool Power early because it's got the same mix, but it's in an ester formulation, not in an amine formulation. That's the two between those two. And the Quincep is got the quinclorac in there. So if you didn't do a good pre-emergent like Frank talked about for your crabgrass in the spring, you're going to have to use something like this to get control of those crabgrass later. Easy broadleaf weed control and herbicide in a home lawn. So some dandelion control. They used Escalade and all of their products. Did a really good job no matter what. Timing on a dandelion is pretty darn easy. Here was their best weed control on that, early dandelion control. 4-speed did the job, but if you remember right, the 4-speed and the Cool Power were kind of their early season esters, whereas the other ones were not. Surge Power Sure Power did good in the summertime. So just some of the way that they look in their weed control. Also, when thinking about doing weed control on new and established turf, I always like to see somebody mow 2 to 4 times before I'm going to put any herbicide on a new lawn. And then also before seeding, we don't want to do anything. You know, we want to wait 3-4 weeks after we played a broadleaf pre-emergent to be able to even seed. But so they've got a lot of different rates, different things on there. So they got lots of options for seeding or that after the fact. Difficult to control weeds. So we talked about oxalis, clover, and spurge. Oxalis, I'm telling you, I don't know about everybody else, but in the last number of years, it's really been a prevalent summer germinator. And part of the problem with oxalis is it can shoot the seed 4 to 6 feet. So if you've got some in your shrub bed this year, guess what? Next year it's probably going to be in your yard because it shot that seed 4 to 6 feet. So if I'm not putting out a pre-emergent, if I'm not putting out the right post-emergent, if I'm not doing some of the right things, we're going to miss the timing on an oxalis. So when I talked about Desperado earlier, that combination in the summertime with the Phloxapyr seems to really do a very good job knocking out oxalis in the summertime. So that's a key element. Phloxapyr, triclopyr, sulfentrazone, and the MCPA really knock that oxalis out, and it's tough. That's a tough weed. Your white clover, as in the middle picture, the thing about that is it's typically because there's a lack of nitrogen in the area. They're fixing that nitrogen and growing well. So we've got to get control of that. And then the spurge on the right, again, spurge is one of those ones. It's going to come up in the summertime. It's going to come up with the oxalis, but it's also going to be there with crabgrass right along the edges of your property. Curb lines, everywhere it's hot, everywhere the crabgrass comes. They did a little bit of Millennium Ultra on some thistle, and man alive, did that work well. So that is, did a great job on, there's a lot of weeds on that area there. I'd like to have seen even more products across the top of that, but their picture of Millennium Ultra really did a good job on that oxalis. Canadian thistle, milkweed, perennial saw thistle. Again, the Sure Power, which is a newer product for New Farm, doing a really good job taking those out of the turf grass.
And we're at 3 minutes, Tim.
Okay, thank you. Season-long weed control, again, they talked about a few different things. Over on this side of the mountains, I don't have a lot of sedges, so I'm not using a lot of sulfentrazone or Solero or those kind of things. Some pre-emergent for grasses that they're in shrub beds and whatnot, but broadleaf focus from New Farm is, you know, their early season 4-speed, Cool Power, Escalade, but horsepower and Cool Power are the two that I use a lot of, and then also the other weeds. So as I'm wrapping up here, you have many chemical choices. Please always, always, always read and follow all label instructions. It's very informative on a label. You can figure all your use rates are on the label, all your safety things, your PPE, your use sites, all of those types of things that are there for you. Really important to read and follow that label. I don't know what else to say about that, but that is the law. That is what you got to follow, and it's really, really important. All right, kind of tough in non-person. Usually I walk around a lot, make a lot of noise, and look at everybody in the audience. Unfortunately, we don't get to do that with this. So I've got a few minutes, I think, for questions. I'm not sure, maybe a couple minutes.
Yes, sir. So how would Desperado work with a boomless head?
How would Desperado work with a boomless head sprayer, you mean? It'd work really well. Really, really well. We've done, you know, being new this year, it only came out late spring, and we put it out in all types of applications in turf, and it did a really darn good no matter what we put it in, some of those little carts and stuff.
And what works best on common mallow?
Mallow has really been tough. Timing is important. Desperado would probably be my better choice, but also I want to make sure that I get a pretty healthy dose of a surfactant in that as well.
Okay, and the last one, can you please elaborate on the reason why it's important to use a different post-emergent herbicide following 2 applications of a 24D product in a given season?
Absolutely. So the federal government has stated if you use a 2,4-D based herbicide wall to wall across the yard, meaning you sprayed all of the yard or most of the yard with that, and you do 2 of those in a season, you have to rotate to a non 2,4-D product. So you can only use 2,4-D twice across the lawn, wall to wall, from a federal government regulation. That answer it? Am I done?
Yeah, yes, sir.
It looks like you are done.
All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. Good job, Jerry, and everybody on the weed conference. It's tough times and crazy times, so well done.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk.